Okay, so I'm doing another TSA paper walkthrough today. So I am doing questions 11 onwards for the year 2020. I thought that I had done questions 1 to 10, but I think I did it for the 2019 paper. So I'm going to have to go back and do the rest of the questions at some other point. I have actually just solved the questions in advance this time, just because I thought it might be a bit more helpful for you all if I actually told you a kind of more clear method, because I felt like it was a little bit confusing last time. When it comes to this TSA, just a couple of thoughts. Obviously, this is a really important exam if you are applying for any of the courses like PP, E&M that require this exam. So, if you have slightly weaker GCSE grades, or maybe your predicted grades aren't as strong as they could be, then the TSA is really where you can make up some ground on that. Obviously, it's if you've got fewer than, let's say, nine GCSEs at a grade 9 or 8, that would kind of put you a little bit below average. Obviously, contextualize it for where your school is and stuff, but that doesn't matter. You could have like 5 9s and you could still get shortlisted and be given a chance at interview if you do really well in this paper. Now, with this paper as well, obviously they've cut section 2 now, so there's no essay part, so it is just the 50-mark multiple choice section. And then of that, it's split obviously into the 25 questions in critical thinking reading and 25 in problem solving. Now, I would really say that if you obviously you get a combined converted score overall, and generally you're expected to get about above 70 to be with a strong chance. However, people tend to do worse in the problem solving section. I think a large part of that is because some of the degrees that take it don't really have math subjects sometimes. Like if they apply for philosophy and linguistics or psychology, sometimes they tend not to have maths or something like that. Actually, maybe not psychology, but anyway, so it is obviously a little bit skewed, but it also tells you that if you do particularly well in the problem solving section, let's say you get 20 out of 25 in that, and then slightly weaker in critical thinking, that should actually balance out a little bit. So try and see, what am I better at? Because I personally would rather do really well in half of it and then maybe slightly less well in the other one, rather than just being kind of average at both, because, it shows a little bit of, okay, this person may have a talent, maybe they just need a little bit of practice on the other skills. So that's just something to bear in mind. So, if you could have that's why it's really important to track which questions you're getting right as well. If you find you're doing really well with the problem solving ones, then really push it and make sure you're getting as close to full marks in that as possible, because if you do get 25 out of 25 in that, you are most likely going to get an interview based on what I've kind of seen over the years. So anyway, I'm going to just talk through a few of the questions now, or how I would go about solving this for any of you guys who are not sure. Obviously, there's lots of really good books out there that you can use that do the same thing. I just thought, might as well get another opinion. Right, so this one is a critical thinking reading one. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to identify what type of question it is. So here we've got parallel reasoning. So with parallel reasoning questions, I'm sure you've seen this before, but the way you want to do it is you want to use kind of symbols, so use X and Y or something like that to replace some of these sentences, because the content is not important, it's the relationship between the sentences. So in this case, we've got as long as there is the right combination of guests, so I'm going to say as long as there is X, any party will be a success, there will be Y. The last party was great, there was Y, so there must have been a perfect selection of guests, there must have been X, okay? So we're looking for exactly that relationship, all right? Let's go through them one by one. So here we've got as long as there is a high level of unemployment, so as long as there is X, all economies will perform below their maximum potential, there will be Y. Unemployment levels here have risen sharply. That's not the same thing, because that means there has been an increasing amount of X, but it doesn't actually say if it's high level or not. So you could have gone from 0% unemployment to 5%. That would still be a sharp rise, but not necessarily a high level of unemployment. So, and then the second part also does not check out, because it says our economy will perform less well than it could do. Well, it's similar enough, but anyway, the order is wrong, because it should really go X, Y, Y, X, whereas this one goes X, Y, sort of X, sort of Y. As long as there are good hotels, any seaside town can get on a good trail. So as long as there is X, you can get Y. So now it should be our town can get on the tourist trail which means there are good hotels, whereas this one says our town is a tourist hotspot. That is not the same as Y, so that's incorrect as well. C, as long as there is somebody in charge, as long as there is X, any project will go smoothly. So there will be Y. So in order for this to be correct, it should be the project will go smoothly since there is somebody in charge. But in this case, it's again been flipped. James has taken firm control, not quite the same thing. So this week's project will be fine. Again, not quite the same thing. As long as there are lots of security personnel around, as long as there are X, public order is sure to be maintained. So Y. Now we should see something along the lines of public order has been maintained, therefore there must be lots of security personnel around. What you'll see here is that instead it says we have been having huge problems with public disorder, so we do not have Y essentially, so there cannot be many security people. It seems like similar, but it's really not, because it's using the negative side of it, right? What about this one? As long as there is lots of water, X, any habitat will support life. So what we want to see now is this habitat has a lot of life, therefore there must be lots of water. And you'll see that's true. So life is abundant in that habitat, Y, so there must be lots of water, X. Okay, so it's most certainly E. It's really important that you are so confident in how you get to the answer here. Really, it's a funny thing, but you know, obviously I've done this exam quite a long time ago, but I have been teaching this for a number of years now. Obviously I can see, you know, it's people go from getting like 15 to I think getting to about like 30 out of 50 is so doable. Beyond that, you know, a lot of it is how much time and effort you can put into it, whether you're really going to crack those final few difficult questions, because everybody has trouble with some types of the questions. But honestly, it's really just about exposing yourself to as many kind of difficult problems, reading. The whole process of preparing for university does go into this, because obviously now, several years later, when I do these papers, they are, you know, I can't find them difficult anymore, which I'm not saying that to say like it's not difficult, because it is, but because this is, I can see why they value this exam so much, because having gone through the degree afterwards, you really see that the skills here, they become so clear once you've actually studied the degree. So it makes a lot of sense. If you do well in this, I can see why you might succeed at university. So yeah, so bear that in mind, that you can absolutely improve. It's just all about exposure, practice, and I'm going to probably talk about all the things that you can do to prepare in another video. Right, okay, question 12. So here's a problem solving one. I personally like to do all the critical reading ones and then all the problem solving ones, but I won't do that today. Anyway, so, okay, a builder has 32 kilograms of a mix of sand and cement. So what I like to do is I immediately like to kind of denote, like simplify the words here, because I really don't like it when it's wordy. I like to get immediately the information in sort of a visible way down as quickly as possible. So 25% of that is sand, so obviously that's going to be 8 kilograms, right? So then the remaining is going to be 24 kilograms to cement. So that's our current ratio, yeah? So now in the new job, what we want to solve is that he wants 120 kilograms sand to cement, and he wants the ratio to be 2 to 1. So what we're looking at is obviously going to be 80 kilograms of sand to 40 kilograms of cement. So what he's saying is he's starting initially with this mix, and then he's adding more sand and cement. So what ratios do we need to add? Well, just take the difference. So we've got 72 kilograms of sand to be added and 16 kilograms of the cement to be added. Obviously, if you simplify that down, you should see that the answer is D, 9 to 2. Okay, moving on, question 13. So here, again, this is one of those questions where you've got so much information given to you. So again, I'm just gonna, what they're asking us for here is, I'll give you a second to read the question, but he's trying to buy a new laptop, and based off of that, he's got certain conditions that he would like to be fulfilled, yeah? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna immediately try and like sort of narrow down, or like write a list of the things that we're requiring here. So we're saying, okay, so in terms of the storage, it's gonna take up 300 gigabytes, the OS system, yeah? And then we need 15 inches minimum, okay? And then the cheapest, that also runs the following, okay? So there's gonna be some stuff which is like a hard requirement, like it has to be a minimum of something, and then there'll be some things where you're just looking for like the highest, right? So let's have a look here. So speed processor, obviously we are looking for at least 2.7, okay? So based on here, we know that that one's 2.7, that one is, so is that one and that one. So we've already cut out one, right? And then in terms of memory, we're looking for a max of, it's got to have at least 8 gigabytes. So again, of these, now we can cross out that one. So we're left with 1, 2, 3. Okay, in terms of the storage, we've already figured out we need at least 300 for the operating system, and then plus 150, 2, and then 150, 300, so we need at least 600 gigabytes. All three of those are absolutely fine. In terms of graphics card memory, obviously we need it to be at least 4 gigabytes. All of those, again, fine. Minimum 15 inches, so the only one that we're losing is that one there, so it leaves us with 2. And then we're just going to choose the cheaper one, so that's going to be Ella one. So the answer is going to be E, okay? So with these ones, when it gives you this much information, as I said, just go through and cut one block at a time, and then, you know, get your way to the answer. Don't faff about like trying to, like these things, if it's this much info, it's never going to be something complicated. It's just a series of steps you've got to follow. Right, 14, a combination lock has 3 dials, each dial has 8 letters, so then the following combinations have been used. Right, so I know it's a combination lock. Immediately what I'm going to do is I would write out, kind of just going downwards, because it is a combination lock, and I want to figure out which letters are available on each of the dials. So just going to do that quickly. Okay, so now I need to know which one is not possible, right? So that basically means this order cannot be possible. So either W is not available in the first column, I isn't available in the second, or N isn't available in the third, okay? So here I can see W here, I can see I is up here, I can see there is an N, so that one is definitely doable. I'll just go through them one by one exactly the same way. So Deb, D-E-B, easy, that's fine. And then hat, I'm not seeing an H in there, so I do feel like it is that one. But let's just check the others. So men, M-E-N, yep, fine. And then bad, B-A-D, bad, so I know it's C hat. So this one, again, if you know the types of problems that are going to come up, like I think if you hadn't done a paper like this before, you might think, oh my gosh, it can't possibly be that. That is so simple. Like, what does it want from me? There's a lot of places here where it can accidentally confuse you. There is such a thing as overthinking these papers, right? Just don't. Like, if it is that, looks that simple, it is that simple, okay? So that's why it's so important to go through every single paper. There is a limited number of questions they can come up with, so I think if you just do all of them and really figure it out and get used to the style, then, you know, you'll be fine. Okay, so again, I'm going to identify I'm weakening the argument, so I need to know I need to find the argument, and then I like to, with these questions, try and figure out what the answer is before actually reading my options, and then trying to find an option from the given, just so that will be like an extra layer of checking for me, because I know what I wanted to find, and then when I find it, I'm happy, yeah? So here we go. So let's look for the argument. I know that this sentence here is going to be the conclusion because it's got the word must in it. So I know that a normative statement that we're trying to get to. So I'm going to work backwards. So we're basically saying we must therefore protect the rights of parents in X to smack their children. Why? How are we getting to that conclusion? That's going to be our argument, right? So why do we have to protect the rights? Well, if we keep looking backwards, it says that people resent being legislatively compelled to do what they would have done anyway. Okay, so that's going to be my kind of supporting point. It breeds contempt for the law. That's point number 2. Since the well-being of citizens depends on people respecting the law, we should stop it from falling into disrepute. Okay, so it's kind of those parts. I'm not even really going to like care about that top part as much, because the actual mechanism of the argument is not really going to go through the entire paragraph. Very often it's going to be giving evidence or statements and then leading up to supporting whatever the conclusion is. So again, just to reiterate, our conclusion is we must protect the rights of parents in Northern Ireland. The reason being we need our citizens to respect the law so that it doesn't fall apart. If we tell people what to do, they are going to have contempt for the law. Okay, so it's these things together. So from this, what I'm thinking is either other things can cause people to ignore the law, or other things can make the society fall into disrepute, or anyway, something like that, where not necessarily by letting people do what they want would it lead to a happy situation. Okay, so let's have a look. So no published study has identified any developmental benefits associated with smacking. That's not part of the mechanism that we've been looking at, so we can disregard that. Respect for the law is the decisive factor that underpins social cohesion in the UK. That is quite clearly strengthening the argument because it is arguing the same thing. We need respect for the law, otherwise society falls apart. The ban is one element in a larger mental and physical health programme for children being undertaken by the Scottish Government. Again, that one is not really to do with our argument necessarily. That is kind of maybe just part of a solution perhaps. The damage caused by smacking far exceeds the damage caused by negative attitudes towards the law. That can definitely be part of it, because what we're saying here is that we are trying to look for the well-being of the citizens, and if we stop them from doing whatever, then they're not going to listen to the law and we're going to be unhappy. But here it's saying, okay, yeah, but if actually smacking causes a bigger fall into disrepute, then obviously that one is going to be worse. So we shouldn't allow this final conclusion. We must therefore not protect the rights. So that one is pretty much going to argue the opposite way, or a flaw anyway weaken the argument. And then the final one, popular opinion can in some cases be an effective constraint on immoral behaviour. That is, again, another suggested kind of solution, but not really to do with that final mechanism. So in this case, I think it's really, really clear what the answer actually is. So with these ones, make sure that you work backwards almost, find the conclusion and then find the points that leads up to that, and make sure you link things correctly, okay? Right, so question 16 is a main conclusion question. I really like main conclusion questions. I think they're probably one of the easiest ones in the TSA paper at least. What you just have to do is just be really confident in your answers, okay? If you see something and you think, okay, that's the conclusion, just take it. So again, I really like to suggest looking for the normative statement. The statement which, if you said to somebody, if you said to your friend X, then they would say, oh, prove it, or, okay, where did you get that from? If they're going to say that, that's probably a conclusion, because that's what the whole paragraph is trying to prove, right? So there are some words that give away if it's like a normative kind of like subjective thing. So like should, must, ought to, that kind of thing. So if you like literally just skim through, I'm immediately picking up on this sentence here, right? Forgiveness and justification ought to be distinguished because of this phrasing here, essentially. So I'm fairly sure that it's going to be the conclusion already, okay? As I said, I've already solved this. I do know that's actually correct, but that is what I would have done regardless, okay? So then everything else you can see to get to that point is kind of arguing what goes in there. So we're saying there's a difference between forgiveness and justification according to this person, okay? So what we're saying is sometimes we're mistreated. Forgiveness is one response. However, sometimes we do things that seem wrong, but they're not. If we're told off, we can give an explanation. In this case, it could be okay. So that's essentially what this top part's saying. So that is another thing that I do tend to do when I'm reading these passages, is I'll simplify the language as much as possible. I'm not sure if that will be helpful for you, but maybe try it, because some of these things, they just throw in words that, yeah, fine, okay, I get why they're using that, but at the same time, if you can simplify it into really simple language sometimes, because the argument is the thing that's important, right? So it's not super necessary to like stick with the actual language itself. When conduct is justified, so the implication is that it was not morally wrong. So basically what we're saying is if you've got a reason for it, it can't be morally wrong. So therefore, if it is something that you can be forgiven for, then it must be that what you've done is actually wrong. But anyway, the main overriding point is that forgiveness and justification ought to be distinguished. So if we look down here, that is exactly the sentence. With the main conclusion, they don't actually change the language very much, so what you see is what you get. So you're essentially just picking out a sentence from the text, okay? Okay, so a principle question now. I, again, really like principle questions because I think they're nice and simple, There's not much to confuse you, so try not to look at the content too much. Try to focus more on, okay, what is their reasoning here? So here, what they're saying is that there's people singing in a choir. Again, I'm going to simplify as I read to show you what I would be doing in my head as I read through this. So I'm going to say there's more people singing in a choir, there's 300,000 more people than in amateur football, football's receiving more money from the government, they're receiving 30 million, the choir is receiving 1 million. So therefore, we need to give more funding to reflect the more people who are in singing, because that is more fair. So the same benefits occur for the choir than football. So, you're more healthy in lungs, better posture, immune system, general sense of well-being. So anyway, there are the same positives in singing as there are for football. also teamwork, also cooperation, also determination, discipline, imagination. Now we're just getting onto a list now, so we can fairly say that, okay, overall what it's just saying is that, and the main argument is there's more people doing singing in the choir, same benefits as football, yet they're receiving less funding, we need to give them more funding, okay? So what they're saying is quantity equals give more funding, yeah? So that's what we're going to look for here. So let's look at A. The better of countries have to tackle poverty in our world when we still have over 1 billion people living on less than $1 a day. That is not really the same principle. That's not really to do with more people equals more funding. It's relating to different groups. Audience figures at regional theatres are now greater than in the capital, so they deserve an increased share of the financial aid set aside for the arts. That's pretty much the same thing, isn't it? Because we're saying the same theatres that give the same benefit, there's more people attending in the capital, so therefore they should be given more of the money, okay? So that is the same thing, but let's continue looking. The proportion of people needing treatment for mental health issues has increased by 25%. Funding is needed to deal with this, yeah, sure, but again, it's not comparing two groups where one has more than the other in terms of participants, so that's not it. If citizens are able to raise a large amount of money towards community sports centre, then the local council should show good faith by matching that amount. I hope it's really obvious that that's not it. Our art sectors continue to generate an increasing share of national income, so we need to keep building on the success. Yeah, I hope that's obvious as well. I hope you can see why, okay? I don't want to waste too much time going through each of them, but yeah. Right, question 18, another problem solving. So every week I'm going to immediately start writing down, because as I said, I like to visualize things. So I buy 12 cans of lemonade every week. And then there's two options, either 80p each, or I can buy four cans for £2.60. So usually he buys 3 packs of cans, so in total how much would he be spending? It's going to be £7.80, yeah. So that's his usual spend on lemonade. Now they've got a special offer last week, so you've got individual cans, and then you've got 4 cans, buy 1 pack, get a 5th can free. He doesn't want more than 12 cans. How much can I get 12 cans for? Okay, so now we have, just looking at these numbers, what we want to figure out is, okay, what kind of, price are we getting here? So if we buy 1 pack, so 4 cans, which usually cost £2.60, you do get a can free. So that means for £2.60, you get 5 cans. So that gives you a per can price of like, what, 52p or something? So then, whereas if you buy, using the other deal, so buy 1, get another half price, then 2 cans would be 120. So 1 can is going to be 60p. So basically, we want to maximize the second deal because it's cheaper. We don't want more than 12, however, though, so we can only do 2 lots of that. So basically, we're on £5.20 for 10 cans, and then the remaining 2, we have no choice but to use the other buy 1, get another 1 half price. So that's going to be additional 120. That gives us £6.40 total. So the saving between those is going to be £1.40, so it's E. Okay, question 19. Again, this kind of like flyer, like leaflet style of question is again really common. All they want you to do is eliminate information. So this should be another one of those, okay, I know exactly what I'm looking for. I'm just going to be looking for probably like least cost or highest price or something like that, right? So let's write down the information first. So myself, my wife, and 3 children. So that's 5 people. That's 2 adults plus 3 kids, right? And they are checking in for 7 nights from June 19th. So they're going to be there from June 19th to June 26th. Okay, they want to see Oliver. What is the least it would cost, right? So obviously, I'm going to guess it's going to be the matinee that we're after. But the only one thing that we have to be looking out for is the family tickets, and also whether we can do the Monday night one. So let's have a look here. Monday 3rd to Saturday 22nd of June. So we can't do Monday if we're arriving on June 19th because it will finish before you get to the Monday. So we can immediately discount that one. We can, however, so this June 19th is going to be a what? It's going to be like a Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, right? 19, 20, 21. Yeah, so we're going to be arriving on the Wednesday. So we could do the Wednesday matinee, or we could do the Saturday matinee. So we're probably going to ignore these prices, aren't we? Yeah. So let's look at our options here. So we can do £28, which is 2 adults plus 2 children plus 5. That gives us 33. Let's see if we can do cheaper than that by doing it the other way. So if we just do pure matinee, it would be 20 plus 15 is 35. So no, this one's smaller, so it's going to be C. This one, again, these kind of pattern ones are really common. You just have to like know how to solve them really. But it says we can choose 2 adjacent bits and change each of them to the opposite. So you're flipping, so if you've got that, it's becoming that basically, right? But then obviously the complicated part is if you've got it like that, then you can flip it like that, but then you could also flip it again and do that. So you could end up with like that, for example, right? So we're just going to have to, in this case, look at each of them one by one and then see, okay, is this actually possible for this to have flipped and ended up in this way? So let's look at A first, right? Our initial is 0, 1. I'm just going to write it out a bit bigger because I can't see. Okay, so initial one is 0, 1. Okay, that's fine. 0, 0, again, fine. 1, 0. Yeah, these two could have flipped. That's not a problem. And then 1, 1. Yeah, that's fine. So these two, they could have flipped into the other one. And yeah, so obviously, which of these cannot be the result? Well, A can be the result. Okay, let's do 1, 1, 1, 1 now. So again, 1, 1, is that possible? Yeah, okay, this would have flipped into 1, 0, 0, and that would flip again into 1, 1. So that is fine. And then 1, 1 again. Yeah, that's fine. And then these 3 could have all stayed the same, right? So that is in fact possible as well. Let's look at the next one. So 1, 0, yeah, these 2 could have flipped. That's fine. 1, 0, I guess it would have been fine. 1, 0, 1. So then that would have to flip again. That's fine. And then 0. Yeah, I don't think that's actually possible. So these 2 would have stayed the same, right? So we've got 1 that's not flipped, but if you flip that one with this guy, then this one would also have to be a 0. So I think it is C actually. Let's just check the other 2 anyway. So let's look at the other one. So 1, 0, yeah, that's fine, that can flip. 1, 1, again, that's absolutely fine to flip with each other. And then we're doing another pair of 1, 1, which should be fine because this last one can flip twice and that one stayed the same basically. That is possible. And then 0, 0, again, yeah, that should be fine. So the last part is basically the same. So it just means that last 0 flipped into a 1. And so that would have also been a 1. And so, yeah, that would have been able to flip upside down. Sorry, this is actually like the most useless explanation ever. But yeah, that one is also possible. So the answer must be C, because in this one, it would be impossible for this, basically, which one was it? Was it this one here? It would be impossible for that one to be a 0 without that one being a 1, without that one being a 0 or this one being a 0. So basically you can't have this particular combination of numbers next to each other. Okay, that was legwork for sure. But right, parallel reasoning again. So let's try our XY kind of thing. So in real terms, spending on education is going down. So in real terms, X is happening, but reductions in funding always mean a reduction in the quality of education provided. So X causes Y essentially. In this current climate, we should expect to see the quality of education diminishing. So therefore, Y is going to be happening right now, okay? So let's see which one follows the same reasoning. No one ever succeeds in anything unless they make an effort. So without effort, there'll be no success. But you've just won an award for your work in physics, so you must have made an effort. Not quite, because it's not quite linking. It's not quite linking it in the right way, because here it's saying you've actually won, whereas what we would prefer it to say is that you are failing because you haven't made an effort or something. When the water is at this level, it's either high tide or a flood. You can already tell this is wrong because it's giving you like a yes or no, or like 2 options, whereas we're more looking for a relationship. High tide is not for another 8 hours, so there must be a flood upstream. No, we're just going to say no to that. If you take regular exercise, you'll be fit in heart and mind. So yeah, okay, so you've been working out twice a week for 3 months now, so you must be healthy and happy. Okay, so we're basically saying here X equals Y. X has been happening, therefore Y. So if you want to check the other 2 just to be certain, if you eat sweets every day, you're more likely to need dental treatment. So X causes Y. Sam has a lot of dental treatment, so Y has happened, therefore he must be doing X. So it's a little bit the wrong relationships. Does that make sense? Sorry, wrong arrow. The car won't run without a working battery. X will not work without Y, so that's like not quite the same, yeah? So again, I think that's wrong. 22, the floor. Okay, so for the floor, again, we need to identify the argument. So maths, let's find the argument. So in order to do that, let's find the conclusion as well. So in this case, we can see, this is it here, isn't it? Yeah, so from this, we can conclude that the better achievement in maths of boys in the UK is caused by low expectations of girls in maths by teachers and parents. So let's see, how did we get to that argument? So we're basically saying low expectations of girls means boys do better, okay? And we're saying that because international studies of achievement in maths shows that in some countries girls outperform boys in maths, suggesting that social conditioning is the explanation. So we're basically saying social conditioning causes girls to do better, but usually the low expectations means we do worse. All of that stuff before is not actually that important. It's just explaining, who's better at maths, and then we're saying what explains the gender disparity, genetic inheritance, and social conditioning. Clearly, this is wrong. The flaw you can immediately tell without even reading the answers is that social conditioning is basically being considered the same as low expectations. They've made a huge jump in logic there. That doesn't really make a lot of sense when they haven't even defined social conditioning. So I'm going to be looking for that as the flaws, essentially. So it assumes that the only factors in social conditioning are the expectations of teachers and parents. Yes, that's essentially it, okay? This is actually a really poorly made argument. So, so I think what you've got to remember is that these arguments are not on purpose, they're not written very well. So just be looking for the things where if you think, oh, that's so obvious, yeah, it's going to be that, okay? I'm not going to bother to go through the others. I hope that is clear why it is that one. Right, okay, I'm going to leave it there. Please let me know if there are any specific questions that you've been struggling with in the past papers that you're not sure about. I'm going to try and cover all the TSA papers first and then go through the BMAT papers, which I think they're about the same difficulty, just slightly different question format sometimes, but they do tend to share a lot of the same questions, so useful all the same.